Dr. Schleifer, it's an honor to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me.
You had to give a summary of what psychological warfare is and maybe a little bit of how it influences everything around us. What would you say to people about that?
The short definition is how to use psychology in war in order to win the war, or at least contribute to the winning of a war. Slightly longer one, I would say, is how to make your own soldiers patriotic and enemy soldiers pacifists. But these are quite limiting definitions. Sometimes it is called propaganda, sometimes it's called information war, sometimes it's called soft power. But basically is how to, I mean, there's so many elements in going into winning a war. So the first obvious is brute force, right? The kinetic side of war, you know, bullets, and dynamite, and iron. But there are many other forces. But I focus on those methods which are designed to influence the enemy. For example, if your enemy is much stronger or has, let's say, has a bigger and stronger gun, rifle, or sniper's rifle or machine gun than you can ever have. The idea is to persuade your enemy not to pull the trigger. Why doesn't he pull the trigger? Because you persuade him that he's doing wrong, that he is is just prolonging suffering on all sides. You make him feel guilty. You make him doubt the righteousness of his cause. So you won, because, I mean, you didn't win, but you have neutralized his whole arsenal of weaponry, which is you have to admit, is quite a contribution to winning a war. Now, the question is, in our day and age, where the media is the means to transmit a message to each and every one of us, and by the way, we are receivers and senders at the same time. If Goebbels from the Nazi regime would have had what Zuckerberg, the Jewish Zuckerberg, has.
Can you imagine?
Yeah, can you imagine what? All right, so the question is nowadays, if we can harness all this know-how of persuasion and access to each and every enemy soldier and citizen, potential supporter or actual supporter or opponent. So if we can access them, do we change the chances of winning a war? Now, within Israel, it's more it's more crucial because we're so small, and we are 8 million Jews in Israel, surrounded by 300 millions on the immediate enemy circle, and then other circles of Islam, radical Islam, etc. So the question is, can we use this know-how and technology in order to support our defense, our well-being? And in case of war, can we win the war?
Well, I guess that's a great next question is, can we? And B, are we doing it now? Or are we using it to its full potential in the way that we can?
I used to joke for many years that I'm Israel's best analyst of psychological warfare, which is no big deal because I'm the only one. Why is a very small, it's not a group, I don't know, the very small attention given to psychological warfare? By the way, by the IDF, it's called nowadays influence. Influence, yeah, that is hashpa'ah. It used to be called legitimacy. But it's essentially about propaganda. I mean, it's no big deal. So I don't have a problem with admitted with it. The trouble is that people don't know what propaganda really means. People associate propaganda with the Nazis. And this is, by the way, one of the main reasons why Israel is not investing a lot of effort into this field. And Israel is not singular in this respect. Also, many Western democracies also quite detest the field of psychological warfare because it's considered propaganda. And propaganda is, as everyone knows, allegedly, is Nazi. So we don't want to deal with that. And this is a big mistake. So all I've tried to do within 4 decades of activity in this field is to show that we need to understand the nature of propaganda, even though we might call it hasbara or we might do anything similar. We need to know that information is important, which is people, quite get to know it is, and not focus mainly on the kinetic side of war. We can, with quite safely, focus, give attention and means towards persuasion in wartime. And well, so far I obviously haven't been very successful, right? Have I? I had a fight, an argument with a few days ago with a journalist on air, and he said, "Well, we're not like them." So I said, "We can continue to be not like them, but we're losing the the image war. We're losing." Yeah. So he said, "Yeah, but the democracies eventually will win, just like as they did in the Second World War, etc." So I said, "Yes, but the democracy is lost in Vietnam." So he says, "Well, that's also true." Yeah, this is fine.
Both things can't be true simultaneously.
Yeah, well, what we see today is all Vietnam. Is all Vietnam. I can give you a famous photograph of Yasser Arafat meeting General Giap of the North Vietnamese army. And here's the guy with a small agrarian country who has defeated the mighty United States in the 1960s and early 70s. So it's all based on a strategy which is developed, which is called revolutionary warfare, which is a combination of psychological warfare, terrorism, guerrilla, and political warfare. And if I will sum up in one phrase what he has done, he said that we didn't fight the jungles of Vietnam as we fought actually in the streets of Washington. So the political side of fighting politically is what is winning the war.
For me, when I always think about propaganda, I struggle myself to understand whether the chessboard on which we exist in the world, where everybody is making all these big plays, if it's a 2-player game, or if it's a 10-player game, or if it's a 100-player game, how many sides are there, and how many people are fighting for control? Could you maybe describe what the chessboard looks like? Who are the players here in the game, and how many sides really are there here in the propaganda sphere?
Without sounding a conspiracy theorist, you mean?
Yeah, you can sound like a conspiracy theorist if you like.
Yeah, but that would label me as somebody irrelevant, and this is hardly what I want to achieve, right? Okay, chessboard. Above the visible chessboard, there's an invisible chessboard, which is called the Red-Green Alliance. The Red-Green Alliance means that we have Russia, China, allying with Iran, Qatar, and the Islamists and the Sunni world. Now, all these factions have combined their hands to undermine the United States. and on the way undermine Israel as the Jewish people, right? As the state, the independent state of the Jewish people. And once they achieve, that we know from history, once they will achieve their goal, then they would go against each other. But at the time, as of now, their interests are fitting.
The enemy of my enemy is my friend type of thing.
It's more than that. It's not my friend, but we have the same interest. My enemy and myself have the same interest because the red and the green are enemies. Mm-hmm. Right? Islam is enemy of atheism, of the Marxist atheism, and definitely an enemy of Christianity, whether the Pravo-Slavic Church or the Catholic, Roman Catholic Church, definitely. But they are combining their efforts. On top of that, you have two more considerable forces which nobody really knows their extent of their influence, and one of them is George Soros, and the other one is Karl Schwab from the
World Economic Forum.
In Davos, yeah.
WEF, that's what it is.
Right. We know that they're highly influential, but we don't know the extent of which, George Soros has representatives in 150 countries around the world. It's just like a parallel UN, okay? Mm-hmm. But he's effective. The UN is completely non-effective, mm-hmm. but Soros is effective. And nobody really knows what he wants and what he wants to achieve, but definitely to disrupt the current order. So, I mean, for now, we have a three-dimensional chessboard, like tic-tac-toe, right? Will be more appropriate.
Is everybody playing on the same chessboard? Are we all trying to achieve the same goal of just power, influence, domination of the board itself? Is that the goal for everybody?
Yeah, look, it's a philosophical question whether we work for survival or for power, all right? For just, naked power, but one would argue we need power in order to survive, right? Mm-hmm. So it's the kind of circular argument. But definitely, states have always competed for power. What did the ancient Greeks need more? I mean, okay, so Greece is, it's unfit for agriculture, and mostly it's mountainous and very, very small places of terrain where you can grow stuff. All right, so they expanded into Asia Minor, Turkey today. All right, so why did they have to go, all North Africa and all the Roman Empire? I mean, Roman Empire was doing fantastic. So why did they have to go on and then beat the Persians and Alexander the Great, etc., etc. Okay, so some argue that war is a sort of a culture. Somehow war is something genetic that the human animal needs to expand. But we go into philosophy, we understand. Islam wants the world to be Islamicized. And that's a given, that's an obvious, okay? Right, so Islam consists of 85% of Sunnis and 15 or less percent of Shiites. Right, so Iran is the leading of the Shiites, and first of all, they want to control the Islamic world, and then once they will control the whole Islamic world, they'll control the whole wide world. All right, so the Sunnis have also the same ambition, Now, what do you care if I'm Jewish and you're Christian? What do you care? No, they care because that's religion. This is the aspect of the inexplicable, irrational. But the trouble with religion is expansionist, proselytizing religion is that it has no explanation except for that's me and that's what I want. And they are very willing to take resources away from their citizens or their followers and invest it in expansion. And for example, the Iranians now, they say that the rial, the currency, is ridiculous. Is beyond the First World War, inflation.
Yeah.
And they still go and still invest the few millions that they have. Egypt is on the brink of starvation. Now, can you explain to me why is Egypt expanding its army, especially on the Sinai Peninsula? Okay, this is what it is, and we need to take it into consideration.
So we established that like propaganda. That's the like almost like it sounds like reverse propaganda. Like you're trying to brainwash yourself into believing that X is more important than Y, or
you don't try to persuade yourself. I mean, you have an ideology. You don't persuade. You are born. You're indoctrinated into that. You're socialized into that. You do that because your parents and your teachers told you to, but somebody has indoctrinated your teachers. Right. Now, what was his purpose in the first place?
Right. Well, I guess he'd be teaching you what, he gets a syllabus or a list of things he's supposed to teach from the university that comes from.
Right.
And then you can start talking about Klaus Schwab and Qatar money, like going around. What's the material that the university is prescribing to their professors to teach?
Right.
Maybe that's a good follow-up to this element here. Just for the viewers to understand, like the World Economic Forum, from my perspective, the reason that they're so effective in terms, and maybe you can tell me if this is correct or not, the reason they're so effective compared to the UN is because they're businessmen. And they're people that they have money, they have influence. I don't think people understand what happens when a few really powerful people get in a room, even no conspiracy, just the CEO of this huge oil company, the CEO of this big tech company, and they just say, you know what, we're not going to buy oil from here anymore, we're going to buy oil from there. And then we watch that economy just,
sure.
No conspiracy, just business. But you see how powerful it is.
Yes.
Or, what happens when Qatar starts sending money into the universities. It could be, that might literally be all it is. We're just going to give you money. But again, that's what some might call a bribe. It's you're nice to me, so I'm nice to you. You see it's in the Israeli media now with Qatar. We just invite you for a meeting. We invite you for a little tour. We show you around. We roll out the red carpet. And then you come back and you write some nice articles about what you saw in Qatar. They're not enemies. They're nice. Like, what do you think about the silent influences of like for example Qatar, or the World Economic Forum? How does that trickle down into the propaganda that somebody would see on their cell phone, or like in today's world? How does it play out from top to bottom?
There's a theory in communication studies which is called the agenda setting. They don't tell you what to think, they tell you about what to think. All right? And the way you get the information is, the idea is to make you feel or think that you reached the conclusion by yourself. Okay? There is a very good saying I picked up from my late supervisor in Leeds, Professor Taylor, was about 35 years ago, 40 years ago. He said that the best way of persuasion is to be persuaded without knowing that you were being persuaded. Okay, so people, I'll give you I'm not telling you what to think, but I'm telling you A, B, C. This is what's happening. It's a red-green alliance, and there's nothing else. And now I'm coming with my authority as an academic, and you say, well, red-green alliance, that's what it is. And maybe I have a motive, a secret motive. Maybe I'm being paid by somebody to push this message forward. Maybe I'm actually an agent for, I don't know, the CIA, the KGB, the FSV, whatever. All right. It's very easy to persuade people. It always has been. Always has been. But nowadays, it's 10 times easier to persuade people. Therefore, it is so much dangerous to the welfare of the human race. Heinrich Himmler, Yimach Shmo, the head of the SS, he said, no farmer, he was a chicken farmer by himself in his former career before he became the head of the SS. So no farmer would ever leave his farm in order to join the army for some. But if you tell him that his homeland is under danger, he would be willing to sacrifice. Okay, so there's truism here. So what you need to do is persuade him that his homeland is on danger. Right. Fortunately for Israel, we didn't have to prep the Israelis to think too much about, because we realized that we are being under attack, and we are in a serious existential danger, more than usual. So we joined the fight. How long can we join the fight? Okay, so the enemy is trying to say everything is cool, don't worry, we're okay. So the deception is also part of the game, right? And the Iranian deception has been magnificent.
Yeah. So when you train your students, people come to you for a course, and they're green, they don't know anything yet. Yes. They're brand new to propaganda and psychological warfare. What's the general path that one would walk through? Like, what do you need to notice first and second and third?
Good question. Okay, I'll start with critical thinking. I would take normally, if I have leftists and rightists, right-wingers in my class, so I give them 2 op-eds, each one from a different perspective. I'll say, look, take the one that you agree with, okay, politically, and look for me for the manipulation techniques which are being inserted into this text, okay? The next lesson, I take the advertisements. I say, how did these work? What do they appeal to you? What information do they really give you about the product or the service? Third lesson, I take them into PR. Okay, the personality or the organization, how do we do that? And then I start with the Bolshevik Revolution. What we see today is all the strategies are, not on the battlefield, on the civilian field, on the civilian battlefield. It's a Bolshevism, it's a Bolshevik strategies. And Lenin, I'm teaching Lenin. Lenin is the chief rabbi of propaganda. And if you see the reaction or the actions of the protesters in Israel on the street, you see this, it's pure Leninism. It's agitation, propaganda. He combined 2 different doctrines, agitation and propaganda, and united it to agitprop. And this is what you see on the streets. Once the Lenin, then I go First World War, Second World War, easiest part is Second World War, Goebbels, and then Vietnam. Now Vietnam becomes tricky. Why? Because the Vietnamese are the underdog. all right? But yet, they won. So I'm showing how they won, how they trained the PLO, how the PLO, the Hamas, the Islamists, the Muslim Brothers, copied from the PLO, and then we come to the current conflict. This is what I would be teaching them.
Let's talk about Israel for a second. Like, if I just want to see the success of Israel, I want to combat the crazy propaganda push from a massive operation on the other side. How do I do that?
Yeah, we'd also, let's put aside the word propaganda. Here's information or campaign, okay? Because propaganda is in a pejorative. They do propaganda, we do hasbara. That's nonsense. I mean, we all try to persuade. So what they try to persuade us with injustice, and we're trying to persuade with victimhood, all right? Our raped women and etc. So it's a persuasion campaign, all right? So sorry.
Okay, no problem. So on this, with this particular psychological operation, how are we doing so far on our side?
That's easy. That easy. It's not great.
Where are we messing up? What are we doing wrong?
Where to begin? How much time do I have?
What would be the top, if you could go inside and fix one thing straight away?
One thing.
Wave a magic wand, you fix one thing.
I would pull the prohibition of the IDF soldiers not to film, and tell them to film as much as they want, but send it to a headquarters. Civilian, even civilian. I would put them some intelligence, former IDF intelligence officers, which would determine if it's revealing IDF secrets. And if it's not, put it
out for all
put
to
it
see.
up for all to see and push it. Not just put it, push it. Now, this is contrary to IDF traditional behavior, even though the IDF has progressed tremendously compared to the past, which it blocked all information, which forced anybody to think, what do they have to hide? Aha, we know what they have to hide. And we know we use the information that the Hamas has been, pushing. A lot of information is considered damaging because it shows the IDF in a bad light, considering the conduct of some officers. But I wouldn't care about conduct of officer. I would care about revealing secrets. If it doesn't reveal any secrets, and it could support the Israeli cause, I would say this is what I would fix. This is what I would give.
And what about from the Hasbara side? There's so many influencers out there.
Our side, you mean? Israeli side.
The Israeli side.
Yes.
I'm trying to speak objectively, so but
There's
that's
no objectively.
But you're 100% right. We're on the same page with that. There's so many influencers out there that are very well-meaning. For example, you take an Israeli, grew up in Israel, very strong patriot of the state of Israel.
Right.
It's his country, it's his home. He knows nothing else. That's
Right.
one type of person. And then, like plenty of our reporter friends, and social media influencers from America that moved to Israel. They're Jewish. They have a little slightly different view on the state of Israel than maybe the Israelis do because they were born here. But everybody is just trying to go out there and do something. Like, what can we do? What would be your advice to influencers, people that have a following, people that have access to a camera and their voice and information that's out there on the internet, or people that they can speak with? What would be your advice to people in Hasbara or influencers that are really trying to make a difference and help push back on the informational campaign that's being used against us?
We need to determine the most acceptable overarching agreement on most of the pro-Israel influencers. Now, this is a very wide definition. Our problem, as you rightfully pointed, is everybody knows what's best for Israel. Okay, but we have to realize that we're very fragmented, segmented, different. So some people think that, well, the basic weakness of Israeli information efforts is which target audience are we speaking to? So if we show that we are open and progressive and we have a gay parade, so that might be wonderful for the progressives and the left abroad in the States. But it will be terminally
the Orthodox Jews.
Or the Orthodox Jews are very small fragment, but to the evangelicals. Yeah, what right. 60 million?
Yeah.
We are offending 60 million Americans, the 25% of our supporters. And if you show the Mea Shearim or the Haredi or something very Jewish, visibly very Jewish, so you might antagonize the Islamists, and you might antagonize the very influential Jewish leadership, which is trying to walk away from their great-grandparents' tradition.
Well, it's obviously complex, but if I'm just a normal, innocent influencer, how do I make sense of all that? Because I mean,
you need to. I'm being Israeli. I'm cutting right into
no problem.
it.
So, Go ahead.
But because I don't think it's rude. The audience might definitely think it's rude, but me as an Israeli, it's natural.
I don't mind it at all.
Yeah, because you're Israeli. Yeah.
No, I brought you here to hear you speak. I'm just, I'm trying to formulate. We're talking about a very complicated topic, so I'm trying to formulate my questions in coherent ways. It's sometimes difficult.
Right. So how do our enemies counter all our messages? They know the basic tenets of psychological warfare. Always attack. Always deny.
Yeah.
Oh, if you've blundered, deny.
Yeah.
Before that, attack the enemy. Yeah. Until the real information comes in, the true information comes in, you're ready with a different accusation. Right. Always attack, just like in the infantry or the armory. You don't let your enemy raise his head. Okay, so there was the Al Ahli hospital in Gaza. So there's a missile which was misfired by Hamas and fell and killed a few Palestinians, which is gold material for Israel. All right. So how do they counter that? That was an Israeli attack.
Yeah.
Okay, so Israel said, "No, it wasn't ours. It wasn't ours," and I'll show you. Right. So then it'll take 24 hours, and tons and gallons of coffee during the night, where analysts have to work and bring the coordinates that the missile was not shot from here.
Yeah.
All right.
Or Majal Shams is a great example.
Yeah. Majal Shams is a result of the Israeli reluctance to use psychological warfare. Because here you had a golden opportunity. So Hezbollah was saying it was an Israeli missile. Yeah. Nobody believed that. It was completely irrational, unacceptable, obvious. All right? But Israel did not say, because we don't do this kind of thing.
We don't do it.
We don't do it.
Right.
It's not. It's.
You really think it's because of the Nazi, that connection? That they think it feels dirty. Israel doesn't want to do it because it's not nice. It's not who we are. It's not becoming of a democracy.
I have a long explanation, the academic explanation, a course, and a short. I'll quote for you a quote from the Talmud. Right. So what is the essence? Talmud, written in the 3rd, 4th, 5th century in Babylon. So what is the core of the Jewish people? They are Rachmonim, Baishonim, Gomlei Chasodim, right? They are shy, they are merciful, and they are charitable.
Yeah.
I mean, and here you have, you're fighting against Hamas. No mercy, no charity, no, so you need to be a killer.
Right.
So we kill because we don't have a choice, we kill. But to exalt, to be joyful about the demise of your enemy, we have verses against it. We don't. You shall be vengeful. You should not be. Don't be happy when your enemy fall. In psychological warfare, this is the golden opportunity. Go for the jugular.
Yeah.
But we don't do that.
We don't do that.
We don't. We go for the jugular when it comes to hand-to-hand combat in Gaza, but we don't do it politically.
Wow. Sounds like a catch-22. It sounds like we're in a position where it almost sounds like we're never going to do that.
Right. Zhou Enlai, the Chinese prime minister, was asked in, when was 60s something, what does he think about the French Revolution? So he said it's too early to tell. Since the failure of the rebellion, of the Bar Kokhba rebellion against the Roman Empire 1900 years ago, we didn't fight, we didn't have an army. We started fighting about 100 years ago. Until that, we had negotiations, community negotiations against the pogromchiks, against anybody who was. So we negotiated, and that worked until the Holocaust. And with the negotiation, they want to destroy us, and there was no negotiation.
Right.
Okay, so negotiations started about a lesser degree of destroying us only when America went into the war and was defeating Germany. Then they came to negotiate, but that was already too late. There was nobody to save.
Right.
No, hardly anybody to save. A couple of thousand Hungarian Jews. So we initiated, Ben-Gurion started an independent, he worked for it. The followers of Jabotinsky worked for it. Okay, so we defeated the British. We're using a lot of psychological warfare against democratic Britain. And we have our independent state. Okay, all right, so we need to be an army and we need to fight. So we use whatever experience we got from the British Army and from what we from this angel Ord Wingate, who trained the forerunners of Palmach, and we won. Okay, but we're not Prussian elite officer. Niveau or officer layer of society that is, directed all the war. We have all of the insignia of the IDF is the sword and a tree, an olive tree, or the Palmach had a sword and the two shibolim, like of wheat stalks. That's it. We need to train. We need to train ourselves in military strategies. We need to train in being in the Middle East. We don't understand the Middle East. We reject the Middle East. Very damaging image or metaphor produced by Ehud Barak 20 years ago. So we are a villa in the jungle, which is very damaging, I find. Besides other damaging things, which is pushing.
It's a whole other
yes
conversation.
We're not a villa in the jungle. We're in the jungle. To that, I can add what the Turkish foreign minister said once, that in the Middle East, if you don't sit to the table, it means that you're part of the menu. Okay, and we're in the Middle East. and the future of Israel is less of the Charlton Kugel tradition. It's anathema to the climate of the Middle East. It's damaging. It's great. I love it. I'm an Ashkenazi. I love it. But it's, you know, it's not.
Yeah, it's more shawarma and falafel over here.
It's, I would say, more lamb chops and yogurt and vegetables. But the herring and Charlton Kegel, I mean it as a culture.
As a mentality.
As a mentality. I mean, we won't survive that. We won't survive with Charlton Kegel. All right? So people say, that's fine. That's fine. Let's get the Brits back, or America for that matter, and we'll continue being a community. That's fine. And this is very, it's a mutual attitude towards the radical left and the radical Haredim, right, the Neturah cartel. Let's continue be a community. But the majority of the Jewish people don't feel like that. But we need to realize that the Middle East has its own different way of thinking and different way of behavior. And if it's not contradictory to the Torah, so we need to accept that,
right,
and incorporate that.
So, and I think we're just about nearing the end, and I want to ask you one. This has been fascinating. Thank you so much. But one final question would be: what is your one message that you'd have to people who are not the idea for people on the outside who just want to make a difference and help us move this thing forward? What would be one piece of advice that you'd have for them?
Okay, I would say boxing. Defense and offense. And defense is not for the sake of defense. It's just an interim stage for offense. Always, always, when you have a message attacking Israel, so you say small part of your energy towards defense, blocking, you're lying, and offense immediately. I think that would make a beginning of a difference. On the next stage, we should work on what is really our story, our common story, as common as we can organize and we can agree on, like just throwing out a suggestion. An independent Jewish state doesn't matter on which borders. Okay, something that the right and the left can agree on, and then go on and realize the strategies of psychological warfare deployed against us. And attack, always attack, always attack. By the time that you'll be proven wrong, there'll be another attack coming from you. And I think this is what the message should be.
Great. Wow. Dr. Ron Schleifer, thank you so much. Maybe you tell the viewers where they can find you.
In Jerusalem. Just came back from a tour a long tour in South Africa of lectures on psychological warfare and what needs to be done. South Africa has a problem. Now Australia is on the line, and that Canada, and finally the United States. They can find me on Google, they can find me on Amazon, they can find me on Marachot in Hebrew, they can find me a little bit on YouTube, and they can find me on my email, and sometimes I'll give an answer. Great.
All right. Well, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure talking. It's been very educational for me, and hopefully for our viewers as well, I'm sure. I guess we'll catch you next time.
At your service.